Hello, everybody. I'm Amy.
And I'm Audrea.
This is the right crowd. So grab a cup of coffee.
Or a delightful cup of tea.
Maybe, what's this? For mama. Okay. Maybe a little something on the rocks. And let's get. So I do have chai.
I was wondering what was in there.
It's not coffee. I mean, that's a really light coffee if it's coffee. It's not coffee. It's chai. I've had enough coffee today. Don't need any more coffee for drinking chai.
Is that a thermal?
Huh?
Is it thermal, that container?
No, it just makes it so that the condensation doesn't like the whole.
Okay.
It's less condensating-ish.
Okay, good enough. That's nice.
And it's pretty.
That is very pretty. That's very pretty. All right. So what are we talking about today, Amy?
We are doing our next lesson in the 27 Essential Principles of Story by Daniel Joshua Rubin. We are doing chapters 7 and 8 today. I do hope that you guys are enjoying these and that you are following along. I've been keeping up with the YouTubes, and it looks like there's between 10 and 15 of you that are watching these every month. So, yeah, I'm glad we're doing it for you guys. Of course, by the time whoever you are is watching this, it could be 5 years from now, and there could be a lot of people watching it.
Billion.
According to 15 of you. So, for those of you that are watching, please be sure to like. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, subscribe.
Okay, so speaking of 27 Essential Principles of Story, Amy, we are on Chapter 7, Max Out the Middle. And if you recall from our last episode, I said I was really looking forward to this chapter because I am in the middle of my WIP, work in progress.
What you say? There you go.
And like very many authors, the middle sometimes can get muddled, muddy, sticky, icky. And there
Or
were
where you give up because you can't figure it out.
Yeah, and go start another book. Like, I don't know anybody who has ever done that. But Max Out the Middle, he does a quick take about this. And the quick take is that first little paragraph that tells you what he's going to tell you in this chapter and gives an example sometimes. And so in the quick take, he says all parts of your story are difficult to write. There are infinite possibilities for every choice. And then he goes on to say, none of it is easy, but generally speaking, it is simpler to craft the narrative for your beginning and ending than the middle, because its purpose is not as simple to define. And I thought that about sums it up. I can do the beginning, I start out great, and then I'll jump all the way to the end so I'll know what happens, and then I'll go back and I'll write to the end. But his explanation of why people get stuck in the middle kind of resonated with me because he says it's because there's so many things that can happen. And if you are not clearly focused on your central dramatic question or CEQ in the middle, you can get lost. And that's where the muddle comes in.
Yeah. So he goes into how it works, and he has a couple of different examples that he uses. But what I would like to say is kind of towards the end of that page, he says, if there's one place you get to break free from all constraints of narrative and focus exclusively on generating raw emotional power, it's in the middle. Go big, especially in early drafts. You can always pull it back. So put everything in there and then figure out what you want to keep.
I loved that. I absolutely loved that idea of put everything you want in there. He's like, blow blank up, leap off cliffs, race at high speed, storm the fort, basically do all the things in the middle. And you can always pull things out. And I think that's why I have struggled a little bit in the middle because I'm trying to make, well, because I'm a perfectionist and I'm trying to make each scene perfect. And that's crazy talk. But I've never given myself the freedom to just make all the things happen. Just go big. Just go big or go home, as they say, in the middle, and then pull out what doesn't work. And I like the way he phrased it, and I like the way he talked about how things you can get stuck because of not focusing on the CDQ or central dramatic question. And also he talks about how, let's see if it's in this part, or about how you want to set up an emotion, the emotion that you want your character, or not your character, your readers to get out of the scenes in the middle. And once you pick that emotion, you write towards that. And when I read that, I was like, poof, mind blown. That freed up in my current work in progress. It made a lot of things, it cleared away a lot of the mud. It was like,
The
right.
cobwebs on the wind?
I have mud. I had full on deep mud, like quicksand mud. Like it's gonna leave a stain mud. But anyway,
Oh, clay. Clay is hard to get out, and it's very thick and icky.
that's what we've got here. All right. So moving forward in Max Out the Middle, he talks about two classic tricks. And these are classic tricks that you guys have heard us talk about in other books, or you all know about from other techniques. But he said these often work well, and that is the midpoint climax. And that is where you insert a plot twist or reversal. And it's an event basically that changes the hero's fortune from good to bad, or from bad to good, depending on what type of book you're writing. And then also the fake victory, fake defeat. And we've seen that in Save the Cat, right? Writes a novel and a lot of other structure books. Did you have anything about this first part? Anything else?
Anything else? No, you said all the things I was gonna say, so keep going. I like this. I just listen.
No, no, just listening because I lost the part about, oh, okay. I'm gonna go back one little bit and says about the feelings, because I wanted to make sure to pull that out. All right. So I'm gonna obviously take this part out where I'm flipping back and forth. Why didn't I highlight that?
So, I'm gonna do this in the video so you know where you were at.
I highlighted all the other parts. Okay,
86, page 86.
put that. Sorry. Okay, we're gonna move on. All right. So
Well, the part that I see in it was where it says you don't wanna be forced to paint by numbers to strangle your creativity and stifle your originality.
that is a very good point. That is a very good point that he makes. All right. So the story or media he used to illustrate this point of maxing out the middle was How a Master Did It. And he uses If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, which is a classic. And he describes the book and all of the feelings and how intense the feelings are that Baldwin wrenched out of his readers, basically just wrenched them out of his readers. I didn't read that book. And as I was reading through his synopsis of the book, I remembered why, because it is super sad. That's
Just in a little bit that I read, like, here, I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know that I would this is not" I didn't read it, now I know why.
yeah. And there was a movie made based on it, and I remember looking at that going, I will never watch that. But you all know by now that Amy and I like happy things and joy. Amy is a killer.
Well,
And
with books, yes. Yes, you're right. I am starting, though, to read more happy, joy. I'm getting there. I'm reading less murder, kill.
you know what? Whatever floats your boat or stocks your shelves, it's all good.
We're stalks you in the middle of the night.
Yeah. I'm actually getting into more horror.
No.
I can only read
I did that in middle school and high school.
really see I didn't do it there.
I
So
read all the horror in middle school and high school. I watched all the horror films in middle and high school. Now I want nothing. Nope. Not interested.
I read one, and we digress. I will publish it. I read one Stephen King short story. I've read the novels, many of them, but I read one of his short stories. I thought, well, this will be good. I like Stephen King. He's a great writer. I'm going to just read the short stuff and just move on along. I was an adult, and I remember very clearly I started reading that story. It was nighttime, And
You gotta read Stephen King at night.
oh, it was wrong. It was wrong of me. I mistakes were made because I had to get up and turn on all the lights in my house and close and double check the lock on the door. And I was peering out the window. And that was just all before I even finished that
You know that's how people die in horror flicks is they peer out the window.
yeah.
There's no peering out the window.
I've gotta not do that. I did that during a hurricane once. Never mind. I'm taking this part out of the story.
No, you're not. Okay, so back to the book.
Back to
Um, yes, this is not a book that I would have. However, in this book that he's discussing, If Beale Street Could Talk, when he gets to the middle, he just barrages the
yeah.
story and he just keeps pounding. And that's what he's saying to do is when you get to the middle, you don't let up. You just keep going until the people, they've had you reached them right to the point, right before they say they've had enough. And then you finish it. Either the person dies or the person gets back together. Like it's one or the other.
Happens. Yeah. You just keep making it worse. Okay. So in how you do it, where he talks about where he gives you methods to execute the principle, the very first bullet point is the bullet point that I was trying to remember.
Yes, it is.
Identify the primary emotion at the center of your story. There will, of course, be many emotions, but one is front and center. Get clear on what it is. When you tell this story, you are making a promise to your readers to stir this specific feeling in them. So if you get clear on that when you're heading into the middle, you can use that as a guiding post for what you want to do in the middle. And I highlighted that. I just forgot what page it was on, but that helped me a lot in my current work in progress, is to think of what is the emotion that I want the readers to experience throughout this book. It's also helping me with with a series of short stories, but with a novella I'm working on for this same series. There's a specific emotion that I want people to get when they read this series of shorts, and I hadn't thought of it that way before. It's just a different way to think of it.
What I do like that he has said multiple times in this chapter is to trust your gut.
Mm.
Make a list, have 50 gazillion things on it. I've said 50 gazillion like 4 times today.
Eh.
I don't know where that's coming from. But we're gonna make a list of 50 gazillion things and then go back through it and trust your gut on what things to use and what things not to use. And just like we have said in previous videos of different books, you can write it all out and you don't like it, don't delete it. Just move it and save it because those are still good words.
Yep.
They just may not be the words for the book that you're working on. One thing I do want to point out in this list that he gives you of what to do, he says, challenge yourself as a writer, as a person, to feel here more than you're comfortable feeling. Of note, this right here could be the biggest cause of writer's block. What if it's not a block, but a fear of feeling? That we use the same color.
Macky.
The softies. So that right there, like I didn't just highlight it, I put a bracket around it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, did you
That
just step on my toe?
yes, that makes sense. That resonated for me too. This right here could be the biggest cause of writer's block. Yep. Yep, because I don't wanna feel those bad feelings, and I don't wanna torture my character because then they will feel bad, and I'm writing to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I felt confronted when I read that book. Felt like,
Yeah.
it
But that also brought up to me was, so what's the feeling that I don't want to feel? And I don't know if it's the feeling I don't want my characters to feel,
Mm.
or if it's me, I don't want to be rejected from people not liking what I have to say.
Oh.
So I'm not putting it on paper and making it public for people to read it and be like, well, this sucks. How long did it take her to write this?
Oh, no.
Yeah. I'll get there.
Yeah.
And in general, in life, in general, I don't care what you think. However, it's something that I've wanted to do my entire life.
Oh.
It's hard to be like, okay, Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. It is very.
I think that's my holdup.
But when I thought about the feelings, because when I read that and I read it again, and then I read it again, and then I highlighted it, and then I read it again, and then I sat there and I thought about it, like, this is striking too close to home for me to just buzz by it. I think the feeling that I'm avoiding in my work in progress sometimes, a lot, is where when you make it worse for them, she has to feel like she is losing everything, a thing she's wanted her whole life, and she's about to lose it if she takes this next step. And feeling lost and alone like that. I don't want her to feel like that. I don't want me to feel like that. So what if I just don't write it? I'll be
And you know what's funny about that is that we think about the feelings of our characters, but they're not real.
not re
But we still think about it, like, we still don't want these horrible things to happen to them. We don't want, like, their heart to be broken or their pet to die or their house to burn down or for them to come home and find their whole family slaughtered by a madman. Like, these are not things we want to feel for our characters to feel, but they're fictional.
Yeah, by the time I'm done with the books, I'm probably gonna need therapy, like, PTSD therapy to get over the imaginary stuff that I
Your therapist going, "Wait, who is this person? Wait, it's a character in a book you wait, I don't understand what the problem is."
an orphan. Okay, I don't oh my okay, and then the other thing that I wanted to go back to is where you said he said over and over in this book or in this chapter and in the book to trust your gut. If you recall in a previous chapter, there was an exercise, and I have to remember it was part of the mini final exam. And he gives you the scene and he gives you multiple choice. Which one of these would be the next best scene for this particular story? And we talked about it afterwards, and the one that was the right answer was the one I did not wanna pick because I was like, "Oh, that would be awful if that happened." That was the right one, and he says, "If this one is the one that made your gut clench up, then you this is the right it's why this is the right answer."
Yeah.
Well, the idea for you reading along at home, if you're working on a work in progress, to make a list of all of the bad things that can happen in your work in progress in the next few chapters or wherever you are, and then pick the one that just makes you just not feel great and just kicks you in the gut. That's probably the right one.
What's the one that's gonna make the reader throw the book across the room?
In a good way. And then to finish up this how you do it, he says, by making bold choices, you risk making a fool of yourself. But by not making them, you risk irrelevance. And I wrote right next to that, aka boring your reader. So that's the other thing you risk by making those safe choices.
Yeah, we don't wanna if you bore your reader, they don't read it.
Yeah.
They put it down.
And they won't read the
It
next
becomes
one.
a DNF. The only thing they tell everybody about it is how they didn't finish it. We don't want that.
We don't want that.
Okay, so then he does the typical your mini final exam, which I don't think we typically go over.
Not usually, unless I mean, it was a good one. You should all do your mini final exams. I always do my
Do
final.
your homework. And then the continuing ed for this chapter is based off of Anchorman: The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Yes. And
Which is not my kind of movie, so I did not watch it.
I have seen it. I have probably seen it more than once. It is
Yes, I'm sure you have.
how dare you, I think. Well,
We're the complete opposites in just about 98% of everything. So I'm surprised you've watched it multiple times. It makes sense.
well, I will say about this, about Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, it's a screwball comedy. And so when he's talking about it in the continuing ed, and he's talking about what, if anything, does this scene have to do with the rest of the story, and why was it necessary, or where did that happen? I started thinking about that particular scene in the movie, and how I thought it was just, I mean, well, all of it's just silly, but it's a screwball comedy. And if you go back to the whole genre, it is a screwball comedy, and that's why the silly things that happen in that comedy or happen. And that's why when you're choosing something for romance, you have to honor the happily ever after and
Yeah.
what's supposed to happen. In the horror, you have to amp up what the monster is doing and to the victim, or that feeling of fear that's visceral. So as with that genre. So
Yeah.
anywho,
Anything else on this chapter or move on to 8?
nothing more on that chapter other than I'll probably be rereading it as I go through my work in progress a few times. All right, moving on to chapter 8. Begin the end with a critical decision.
So he starts this chapter with a quote from Billy Wilder, screenwriter and director. The event that occurs at the second act curtain triggers the end of the movie.
You know, I have to say I had a little trouble with this particular chapter, and I'm going to tell you why.
Why?
Because I had no idea what he was talking about. The title of the chapter didn't tell me. I had never heard it put that way before, so I didn't get it until he illustrated it with Rocky, and he illustrated it with an example about when he was on a flight. So I'm not going to jump ahead to that. But there was one thing in the quick take that I did highlight. And he says, when there's two people fighting, and one of them finally does something, or you, or in this situation, so the other person does something that finally you've had it up to here. And everybody around you, it's like a group of people. That other person has insulted you in front of these people, and that's just it. That's the last straw. Everybody around you in that circle is probably going, "Ooh, something is about to happen." And that helped to illustrate what he means by in this chapter about the critical decision. Though, "Ooh, something is about to happen," are the readers going, "Uh-oh, what's going to happen next?" Because your main character now is confronted with a decision. They have to make a decision. They're going to commit to the next action, or to doing something against the villain, or to making progress, or what are they going to commit to? Whatever it is going to be. It's supposed to be good, and it's supposed to be juicy. It's supposed to make your readers go, and they can't put the book down. So that was a good example for me. And in the next part, how it works is where
Back real quick. So for me, it was when he described it in the quick take. When you go to the theater,
ah,
whenever there's usually 3 acts, right? And the curtain falls and the curtain falls. But the curtain falls after the second act. It's when everything is culminated, and when they come back for that third act, the end of the movie, all the things that have been building, this is where it's gonna be solved at. And so this, for me, this is how I was like, because at first I was like, "Well, that's cool, but what does he mean?"
yeah.
The same thing but he explains it in the quick take, and that's the way he explains it, and for me, I'm like, "Okay, yes," because you get up from that intermission and you're going, "Okay, how are they gonna end this? Like, how are they gonna fix this?" So, yeah. Okay, now you can go to how it works.
What is it? It's that's the point where she gets tied to the railroad tracks. Little Dexter.
And the train is coming.
Yeah.
But I would make the noise that's always the music that is that part of the movie, but it's been a long time since I've seen one of those to know that music to be able to record to say it for you guys. So we're just gonna visualize it instead of hear it as well.
Well, I'll give you one. When I'm a mystery lover. You guys probably don't know by now. This is a surprise. I'm a mystery lover. So I watch a lot of mystery movies and TV shows. And my husband, he will watch whatever I watch generally. But when we are watching a mystery, especially the British ones, which are so
I
well done,
love the British
the
one.
British ones are just
They're the best.
it'll hit a point, and he'll look at me and he'll go, "Dun, dun, dun." The point. That is that point. Like, okay, what's going to happen now?
Yes. Dun, dun, dun is good. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. All right. So, in how it works, this is where he gives a real life example of that critical decision with a plane trip he took, and the pilot comes over the air and says something, and then what happens next on the flight basically has everybody clutching their armrests. So it's a very good real world example of the critical decision. The pilot committed to something. The pilot is the main character. He committed to something, and the readers are hoping he's gonna make it. And the readers in this example are the people on the airplane. They're like, dude, I hope you know what you're doing. I hope I hope this works out for all of us. So it's a very good example. So when you read the book, pay attention to that one.
Yes. Which we know it landed safely because the guy wrote the book.
Now you
See,
spoiled
thanks,
it, Amy.
I know, I'm the spoil sport. I get it. What it does say is that your protagonist must be the one who makes the critical decision. No one else was making that decision for that pilot.
Right. That's
He was the one that was having to make the decision. He was responsible for his decision. He is the one who would have had to come before the board had it been the wrong decision.
right.
So keep in mind that your protagonist has to make the decision. It can't be a decision someone else makes for them.
And that's a really good reminder. Your main character, I prefer main character because I can say that, has to be the one who has who's taking the action, who has the in the story. So there's another part in here that I highlighted. It's important to foreshadow with integrity. If you're going to foreshadow or lead up to something or hint at something happen, it has to be hinted at through. It has to be fair. We've said that. So it has to be hinted at. It has to be in keeping with the rest of the story or the genre, etc. It has to be fair. Do it with integrity.
At the end of that part, he says, in terms of character, it's about showing the reader and audience that the protagonist understands the gravity of the moment. And in terms of story design, it tells the audience to prepare for the grand finale.
Mm. Exactly so.
And then we have Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, by Mary Shelley, as the How a Master Did It. We all, we all know Frankenstein, but don't we all know Frankenstein?
I believe we do. It's a classic.
It is. I've even read it and watched it. Like
even the new one of the newer ones, Young Frankenstein, is a classic. And there's So anyway,
I actually saw a movie about Mary Shelley and how the book, when it came out, no one knew it had been written by a woman because it would not have been accepted.
Oh yeah.
Everyone knew it had been written by a woman. And they were very not happy when they found out that such a masterpiece came out of the mind of a woman, because we're stupid.
A mere woman.
Whatever. Okay. So Frankenstein, is there anything about this you want to talk about?
No, I think he does, as usual, as per usual. Mr. Rubin does a great job of summarizing the salient points for this particular principle in Young Frankenstein, about the decisions that Frankenstein makes, monster makes, and then your heart is pounding as you read it or watch it to figure out what's going to happen. So, a very good example.
And then in how you do it, I had one thing that I wanted to point out, but I will let you go first if there's anything you wanted to point out.
No, go ahead.
No, okay. So for me, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points. One of them I want to point out because we don't tell you all the things. You need to get the book and read the things. So the thing that I'm going to point out is one of them says, to write this well requires getting into the appropriate mindset. Think of something you dreaded doing for ages. This is the mindset you need to write the scene.
I like that one. I highlighted a couple. I'll just read one of them to you because I think that is the one that, again, as I work on my fiction in all of its forms, I try to remember in particular, and that is identify the specific reason your hero must act now. So why is the decision they make important for them to make now, in this instant, like now? And that will make it all the more urgent as you write it for your character and as the reader is reading it. I also highlighted another one, but I won't tell you what it is because Amy said we are not going to read them all.
I didn't say that. All I said was we don't read all.
No,
I didn't say we could read more than one of them.
No, they're all good. And I love where he does the how you do it in all of the chapters. All of them are just like a master class, just about. All right. So for the final exam, he uses the viral video Leroy Jenkins. And I went out and found the video Leroy Jenkins. You don't have to do it because it is not easy to watch. You're not a gamer.
I'm glad I didn't look it up.
It's funny though, but he basically he tells you word for word exactly what happens in the viral video. It's funnier after I've read this and then go see what happens because I can't tell what's happening in the video. But having read it, I know what's happening and then it's funnier. But it's a good illustration. So that's your final exam. You read through this and the continuing ed is, did you get the answer right in your final exam?
Well, yeah.
Of course you did, Amy. Huh?
Silly of you.
To ask, yes.
Did you?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay because I didn't. Yeah, I didn't. No, I didn't get it right. But at the beginning of this chapter, you recall, even after I read the chapter, beginning of this chapter, I said, I didn't get this one. It took me a few times. So, and I'm just being honest, the very first time I read through this, I didn't get it right because I didn't get it. And then I had to read through and then read the examples more carefully. And then it made sense. So that's just a teaser for you guys. Did you get it right? How many of you got it right? Okay. Put it in a comments on the video.
Yes.
So the continuing ed for this chapter is, it's so funny that he chose Food Network's Chopped. Do you watch
I
that?
love this. Of course I do, though. So, I mean, I
That's
love to cook. In case anybody doesn't know, I love to cook and bake.
okay.
So, Food Network is my jam. We don't have Food Network, but I'm never mad when I go to get my nails done around here because they all have Food Network as the show they're playing in their place.
That's
All of them. So I can just be sitting here and they all have closed caption. I just be watching and reading while they're doing my nails.
cool.
Yeah.
So is there anything you wanted to say about his use of Food Network or Chopped?
No, I think it's great because it follows along exactly this chapter. Yeah, it goes through the whole yeah. So, and it really is at some point in time, the contestants do make a decision that either lets them win or lose. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it follows.
It falls, and I just think it's so fun that he chooses so many different types of media. Like he's got books, he's got movies, he's got cartoons, he's got
Songs.
songs. We've got one of those coming up, and then a reality TV food channel program. And again, you can see the story that or principles of story illustrated in all of these. I will say about the Food Network one, the Chopped. I don't watch all of the programs on there. My favorite used to be Alton Brown. We've even gone this
Yes, I like that too.
we followed Alton Brown around. But anyway,
Are you stalking him?
in a good way.
Heart in the Brown.
We have all of his books. And what if Chopped is on, I can immediately get drawn in because they are so well produced and they are using all of the stuff that goes into making a good story.
Right.
Make you tune into something you normally would not tune into. Why do I care how he's going to use octopus to make a pie? I don't, but anyway, great examples. Yeah. I apologize. I hope I didn't trigger anybody.
All right, guys, we will see you next time. We go over chapters 9 and 10, and then we start part 2.
That's right. Thank you. Bye.